Friday, February 10, in the headlines, Prime Minister Andrew Holness declares stiffer road fines are to deter bad behavior. In business news, Scotiabank and TAJ partner for digital payments. Regionally, Grenadian Prime Minister says exciting times are ahead for the nation on the alternative energy and environmental fronts. Internationally, an aid convoy now in southern Turkey. And in sports, we're on the pitch with cricket. Bravo and Greaves put their sides out front on the second round of the West Indies Championship. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says he's concerned about what he terms misinformation in the public domain on the new Road Traffic Act and regulations. And he's affirming that the new act is aimed at discouraging bad behavior on the roads and keeping people safe. Carla Thomas Hewitt reports.
Addressing a meeting of the National Road Safety Council held at the Office of the Prime Minister on Thursday, Prime Minister Andrew Holness says the monetary penalties for breaches under the Road Traffic Act and regulations are not designed as a revenue measure.
If we improve, first of all, the legal framework, the policy framework, and we institute those into practice in how we design and engineer the roads from start, how cars are designed and engineered, how we drive, then we can reduce the number of accidents to zero. And I know people looking on might say, that's impossible. It is not impossible.
Under the new regulations, a motorist who fails to yield a right-of-way to an emergency vehicle will be fined $25,000. There is a $10,000 fine for motorists who use a wireless communication device while driving, as well as smoking marijuana. Motorcars and cycles whose muffler system exceed 85 decibel will attract a fine of $10,000, while small trucks must not exceed 90 and large trucks 95 decibels. Drivers who have modified their vehicles by removing the silencer or changing the system are encouraged to correct these parts in accordance with the regulations. Motorcyclists will be fined $10,000 for doing a wheelie on the road. Other monetary penalties include charges of $20,000 for persons operating a vehicle that is not insured. Drivers who damage a road sign with a motor vehicle will be fined $50,000, $15,000 for operating a motor vehicle fitted with or which displays lamps emitting a blue light, and $10,000 for using a revolving lamp used to warn other motorists and indicate priority of movement in traffic.
The incorporation of new measures to improve road safety, which may have financial penalties, it is not designed as a revenue measure. The government has no real interest in earning money from bad behavior. It is there as a penalty to prevent bad behavior. So I've taken careful note of this argument being presented, that the fines are too high, which is effectively to say that we want lower fines so that we can pay them and continue to breach.
Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, Senator Kamina Johnson-Smith, is encouraging more dynamic and innovative collaboration between private and public sector stakeholders to take advantage of emerging opportunities offered by the changing global trade environment. The minister was speaking at the Jamaica Trade Policy Advisory Group stakeholders meeting recently. We have more in this report. The meeting was a joint effort of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade, other ministries and agencies, the private sector, academia, and the civil society stakeholders, aimed at providing technical advice and input in support of trade policy development and implementation.
In 2019, the change to jam trade was part of our transition to a two-tiered consultative system under our 2017 policy, wherein it would remain a technical body, a consultative body, but removing the adjustment component, which was no longer a feature of the trade agenda. It would also now act as an advisory body to the new Foreign Trade Council. The latter was intended to be headed by captains of industry and academia who would help to resolve trade bottlenecks wherever they existed and also help to inform policy at another level.
Minister Johnson Smith reiterated the role of the government in facilitating trade through negotiation of agreements and creating policies, including the National Foreign Trade Policy and Foreign Trade Action Plan.
We all, private and public sector, and I always make the point, the private sector trades, not governments. So you, private sector, you are critical to this process. We are the talk and the framers. You are the doers. You are the implementers. And therefore, your role and your partnership is absolutely critical to this process.
Giving the example of CARICOM's 25 by 2025 initiative, Minister Johnson Smith encouraged companies to take full advantage of the opportunities that are and will become available to supply produce to the region.
We need for you to tell us where you see the opportunities that can be seized so we can work with you to help you achieve your goals. We objectively believe that there are possibilities that the new enhanced cooperation tool could present to Jamaica as part of our evolving trade policy toolkit and arsenal, but again, we need to hear from you.
Under the 25 by 2025 initiative, heads of government of CARICOM have committed to reducing the region's large food import bill by 25% by the year 2025. The United Nations Climate Risk and Early Warning Systems mechanism has been contributing greatly to an increase in the availability of and access to early warning signs for the Caribbean. CRUISE is a vehicle that funds least developed countries and small island developed states for risk-informed early warning systems. During the World Meteorological Organization Regional Conference at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel in Kingston on February 8, panelists shared their experiences working with the UN funding mechanism. Maya Chung has more.
Dr. Arlene Lang, Coordinating Director of the Caribbean Met Organization CMO, advised that CRUISE has been a tremendous support for the Caribbean and in particular for CARICOM countries. She indicated that working together, the teams have developed a strategic roadmap for advancing multi-hazard early warning systems, MHEWS, in the Caribbean for 2020 to 2030. In addition, Lang said because early warnings have an overarching need for governance, the CRUISE support has been instrumental for setting the stage for this to be a success. She noted that CRUISE assisted in the implementation of 8 strategic plans and national frameworks for weather, water, and climate services in regional member states of the WMO. CRUISE also assisted in the development of a model legislation and related policy for the region, which was endorsed in June 2021. From that model bill, a drafted national legislation for 8 member states, including Anguilla, has occurred, and they have already taken through the processes in their country. The draft legislation is now before Cabinet in Belize and St. Lucia, with Grenada making progress on their process. Dr. Lang shared that the CMO is currently expanding the CRUISE governance assistance to develop strategic plans for the Turks and Caicos and Cayman Islands while working on priority areas from the strategic roadmap. While thanking CRUISE for its support and responsiveness to the region, Dr. Lang added that the CMO is also looking at funding to upgrade radars across the region and enhancing lightning detection and monitoring. Citing the benefits of CRUISE was Disaster Risk Reduction Advisor with the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction Regional Office for the Americas and Caribbean, Dr. Jair Torres. He said CRUISE has helped the UNDRR to strengthen the capacities at the country level on data-specific issues. Torres said through cruise funding, they have been able to mobilize the different sectors within countries in order to provide the data they produce in an aggregate manner so that national disaster management institutions and organizations can have all the data and organize it. Dr. Torres explained that this makes it easier to sort data in categories such as exposure, vulnerability, hazard, capacity, and damage and losses.
Jamaican politician and former opposition Senator Delano Franklin has succumbed to a long battle against cancer. The Observer Online reported that Mr. Franklin died on Thursday night after ailing for some time. He had been admitted in a serious condition last September at the University Hospital of the West Indies. Further, the report indicated that an urgent appeal for blood was made for the former senator at the time. The reason for his hospitalization was not disclosed publicly. An attorney at law, Mr. Franklin was one of the founding members of the law firm Wilson and Franklin. In 1998, he was appointed chief advisor to the then Prime Minister of Jamaica, P.J. Patterson. Time now for the business report with Danita Rodney.
Scotiabank and Tax Administration Jamaica TAJ have announced a partnership that will bring enhanced tax payment capabilities and convenience to the bank's internet bill payment platform. Reports are that all Scotiabank customers will now be able to make faster, more secure, and more convenient real-time payments of approximately 30 tax types using the Scotia online banking platform or the Scotia mobile app. Now for your market updates. In foreign exchange trading for Thursday, February 9, the US dollar sold for an average of $155.13. The Canadian dollar ended trading at $115.76. The pound sterling traded for $187.29, and the euro sold for $169.15. In GSE trading, the GSE index advanced by 1,520 points. The junior market index advanced by 13 points. The combined market index advanced by 1,542 points. And the All Jamaican Composite Index advanced by 1,288 points. Overall market activity resulted from trading in 97 stocks, of which 37 advanced, 48 declined, and 12 traded firm. Stocks advanced for Caribbean Assurance Brokers Limited, Caribbean Cream Limited, and Community and Workers of Jamaica CCU Deferred Share. Stocks declined for 138 Student Living Jamaica Limited, Access Financial Services Limited, and AMG Packaging and Paper Company Limited. Trading firm were Blue Power Group Limited, Consolidated Bakeries Jamaica Limited, and Everything Fresh Limited. The overall volume leaders were Kingston Wharves Limited with over 6 million units, Wigton Wind Farm Limited Ordinary Shares with over 4 million units, and Image Plus Consultants Limited with over 2 million units. In regional stocks, in Trinidad and Tobago, Calypso Macro Index Fund was the only active security posting a volume of 143 shares. On the Barbados Stock Exchange, Government of Barbados Bond Series B was the volume leader with over 20,000 shares. They were followed by Goddard Enterprises Limited, which traded over 9,000 shares, and First Caribbean International Bank with over 5,000 shares. In regional business, Guyana will be purchasing the natural gas produced in an offshore block to help ExxonMobil Oil Company recover the money it will spend to construct a new pipeline. This news was confirmed by the president of ExxonMobil Guyana. More in this report.
Yes, we will be selling to, when I say the government, it's a government entity, a company that will hold the assets in the power station, the natural gas extraction.
So Exxon will be selling the gas to Guyana?
Yes. But only in the sense that this is a pass-through to the power. It's not the country paying, it's in order to fuel the power station.
That was Alistair Routledge, the president of ExxonMobil Guyana, speaking to reporters at a press engagement on Thursday. The forthcoming gas-to-energy project at Wales West Bank Demerara promises to slash local electricity costs in half. It will include a 300-megawatt power plant, a natural gas liquids plant, and a massive pipeline to bring the natural gas produced offshore at the Sabrok block onshore to Wales. Already, Guyana's government inked a $759 million engineering, procurement and construction contract to cater for the establishment of the 2 plants which will produce electricity from the natural gas. An ExxonMobil affiliate awarded the pipeline contract, expecting to spend between $150 million to $300 million. Routledge clarified how that sum will be recovered.
We're making an investment that's incremental to the original developments offshore in order to transport the gas onshore. That's mostly the pipeline, and that's several $100 million worth of investment. So in some way it needs to recover that cost. And so the way that's been agreed is, well, okay, let's make sure that a price is put on the gas that reflects just that cost of infrastructure. No profit, just the cost of infrastructure. Now what that means is it delivers gas at a very low price to the country, very competitive with anything you'd see internationally, and therefore that's why His Excellency the President has been able to tell the country it will halve the cost of electricity to the country.
While reporters sought clarity on this arrangement, Routledge continuously emphasized that the company will not be making any profits. It will only recover costs. After its investment is recovered, the profits will be shared 50-50 with Guyana. Reporting for the newsroom, I am Fishani Raghuber.
In market data for oil prices jumped more than 2%, headed for weekly gains, as Russia announced plans to reduce oil production next month after the West imposed price caps on the country's oil and oil products. Brent crude futures rose $1.71 to $86.21 a barrel, while West Texas Intermediate crude futures were up $1.57 at $79.63. And that was the business report on PBCJ. I'm Danita Rodney.
In regional news, the Grenadian government is exploring prospects for wind, solar and geothermal energy in 2023. More from GBN News.
Geothermal, solar and wind are all clean, renewable energies with a huge amount of resources and a great potential for electricity generation. During his national address at the Independence Parade on Tuesday, Prime Minister Deacon Mitchell said exciting times are ahead for Grenada on the environmental front.
We continue to actively explore and engage in discussions on Grenada's prospects for wind, solar and geothermal energy, cognizant of the fact that we have the potential to achieve 100% in renewable energy generation in the electricity sector. Exploratory drilling for geothermal energy is currently underway, and it is expected to be complete by the first quarter of 2025. This project will also open significant opportunities for the development of infrastructure works in the parishes of St. John and St. Patrick.
Wind energy refers mostly to the use of wind turbines to generate electricity. Wind power is a popular, sustainable, renewable energy source that has a smaller impact on the environment than burning fossil fuels. Solar energy is radiant light and heat from the sun that is harnessed using a range of technologies to generate electricity and solar thermal energy, including but not limited to solar water heating. Geothermal energy is heat that is generated within the Earth. It comes from the heat generated during the original formation of the planet and the radioactive decay of materials. This thermal energy is stored in rocks and fluids in the center of the Earth. While exploratory drilling for geothermal energy is on the agenda for the mainland, the Prime Minister announced plans for solar energy for Carriacou and Petite Martinique this year.
And in our parish of Carriacou and Petite Martinique, an 800 kilowatt solar PV plant with battery storage will be commissioned by June of this year. This will displace 60% of the diesel used to generate electricity in Carriacou.
The use of renewable energies is crucial at this time as the world struggles to contain its use of fossil fuels. Burning fossil fuels releases large amounts of carbon dioxide, a greenhouse gas, into the air. Greenhouse gases trap heat in our atmosphere, causing global warming. Reporting for GBN News, Beverly Telesford.
On Thursday, Bahamian Economic Affairs Minister Michael Halkitis confirmed that there will be no new taxes on health insurance. More from our news.
Economic Affairs Minister Michael Halkitis made it clear this morning that the government is not implementing a new tax on health insurance. He says an audit by the Department of Inland Revenue revealed that the treatment of value-added tax by one health insurer was not in accordance with legislation.
That insurer was using VAT paid on medical bills as an input to reduce the amount of VAT that they remitted to the government. We found we discovered that, and what we decided was that we would, ensure that companies apply the rules as they are intended in the legislation.
Last week, the Bahamas Insurance Association strongly opposed the decision, as they said the change would lead to increased costs for those with health insurance. But Halkitis says they've had several discussions with the BIA.
This rule was supposed to be implemented July 2022. In discussions with the BIA, we delayed that. We proposed September 2022, then eventually December 2022, then March 2023, and eventually the Bahamas Insurance Association proposed to us in a letter April 1st, 2023, to which we have agreed.
Now, the Economic Affairs Minister says they will monitor the implementation and ensure that the rights of consumers are protected.
So it's totally within the rights of the government to say we would look backwards and go to recoup those sums, and they are in the millions that were not paid, but we decided that we would be forward-looking and start to ensure that the proper treatment is done going forward.
Reporting for Our News, I'm Jamila Missick.
A short-term measure put in place to ease the burden on Barbadians is being extended. It's the social compact between government and the private sector, which in effect provides for the markup on a basket of goods to be reduced. Trevor Thorpe reports.
Minister Simmons said there were some changes to the participating businesses, but the compact embodied the spirit of the social partnership. He said the new agreement, which has to go to Cabinet before the deal is inked, would be applicable to 47 categories associated with a basket of goods which were agreed to under the previous compact.
The new agreement, being applicable to those 47 items, will once again be for a period of 6 months, so that too goes without change in terms of the period of time. For its part, government has indicated already that we will reduce or continue the reduction of electric bill assistance for domestic uses in households for a period of another 8 months, and therefore that is but one indication of government's ongoing commitment. The question of the government's reduction of the value-added tax and the other waivers of duty will be settled by the Cabinet of Barbados, hopefully during the course of the next week or two.
The minister said government is indebted to the private sector, which was subjected to great pain, while at the same time providing an ease for consumers.
The distributors and manufacturers have agreed to a markup between the range of 12 to 18% on dry goods and 12 to 20% on cold storage products as listed in the basket of goods. You will recall that in the original compact, that was a range of 12 to 15% across the board, with them carrying an increased, a continuing increasing level of expenditure with respect to electricity. Then that is only reasonable that they be given some room and adjustment there.
The new compact will run until September, and the minister said all the stakeholders were at the table.
Pork producers have agreed to hold to markup of 10% and sell at $7.25 per pound or $15.95 per kilogram on pork hocks and knuckles, pork mixed stew from the hind and shoulder legs at $7.75 or at $17.05 per kilogram. These prices are the upper price limits, which will be discounted down in times of build-up. Some poultry farmers and producers will work with individual supermarket retailers to bring the best pricing to consumers. And once again, let me say that it is not just a question of the Chamber of Commerce or the retailers, and it is also a question of those people who are producers in Barbados.
Retailers, distributors and manufacturers, as well as bakeries, were also involved in developing the new compact. Trevor Thorpe, CBC News.
In international news, the first international aid convoy since a magnitude 7.8 earthquake struck on Monday has arrived in rebel-held areas of Syria. 6 trucks carrying supplies from the United Nations entered one of the main borders crossing from the southern Turkey into northern Syria. More from Al Jazeera.
The first UN trucks loaded with aid supplies left for Syria through the Bab al-Hawa crossing on Thursday. They are destined for residents in rebel-held areas. The supplies can't come soon enough.
It is the first response after this earthquake. The convoy consists of 6 trucks loaded with sanitary materials, blankets and other items that will be delivered to one of the organizations that operates in the liberated areas, an organization that is a partner of the UN, in order to be delivered to our people in need in those areas.
But Syrian white helmets say the shipments are not enough because they contain only regular aid and not tailored to the disaster. There's a desperate need for that equipment here in Idlib, where rescue workers use their bare hands along with the few tools they have to dig through mountains of concrete and twisted metal for survivors. Thousands of people have lost their loved ones as well as their homes. In Idlib and elsewhere across northeastern Syria, an air of despair and helplessness is taking over.
We still have hundreds of families trapped under the rubble, including 16 of my own cousins, along with their wives and children. We can see what we know are the bodies of our relatives right under these roofs, but there is nothing we can do to collect them and at least bury them. Civil defence teams are doing their best, but we need modern machinery to remove the debris.
Medical workers are also calling for help.
We're dealing with quite a lot of dead bodies and injured people. We send the bodies to Salamoun and the wounded to Salkeen for treatment. We provide emergency care for the wounded, but we have a huge deficit in medicines and other essential medical equipment.
Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, on a tour of European capitals, prepares to lobby leaders at a summit in Brussels for more weapons and a quick start to EU membership talks.
Zelensky said Ukraine is not only fighting for its own survival, but for the survival of Europe.
I thank all of you who helped Ukraine with important supplies, weapons, ammunition, equipment, and fuel. Thousands of items without which we wouldn't be able to endure this total war. I thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, James Bays joins us live from inside the European Parliament in Brussels. And James, it was clearly a powerful and emotive speech from Zelensky. Do you think it will have the desired effect?
Well, certainly there were standing ovations from the members of the European Parliament as the Ukrainian leader spoke in the European Parliament. It was the message very much a thank you message, but added into the thank you message, which we've also heard earlier in his visits in London and Paris, is thank you for what you've done so far, but my country needs more from you. He wasn't specific here in this speech in the way he has been in London 24 hours ago about exactly what those needs are, but we know that he wants fighter jets, we know he wants long-range missiles, in addition to what's already been delivered.
In sporting news, we turn to cricket. West Indies batsman Darren Bravo and a career best spell for Barbadian all-rounder Justin Greaves captured the headlines in the West Indies Championship on Thursday. Bravo gathered an even 100 in his 5th championship career 100 and led consistent batting down the order that carried Trinidad and Tobago Red Force to 369 for 8 in their first first innings against hosts Leeward Islands Hurricanes on a rain-marred second day in the second round of matches. Windward Islands Volcanoes were 48 for 2 in their second innings for an overall lead of 173 after a destructive spell from Greaves sent leaders Guyana Harpy Eagles crashing to 169 all out. And that's the news on PBCJ. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. You can follow us on our social media platforms at PBCJamaica. Thanks for watching.